For today's review, we are looking at General Zod from the Superman Ghosts of Krypton Page Puncher wave. This figure is the second in the wave as it includes issues number 2 of 4. And let me grab the comic over here. As you can see, this is what the comic cover looks like. It shows the comic image of General Zod, and the figure fell over. He can't really stand. Well, because there's problems with the feet, and I'll get to it. It's just my copy. But it fell over. It's just like the first review. Okay. That will happen sometimes. So, the comic itself is a continuation of the first one, and as you can see, Superman basically continues where he left off. He is fighting these weird monster things, and eventually he flies around the Phantom Zone and discovers another aberration of General Zod, telling him what is happening in the Phantom Zone. And then after that, we get to pretty much the end, where he discovers the villain behind all this madness, and it's Brainiac. So, pretty cool. And, of course, the figure fell over. Isn't that typical? You fall over. It's so funny when that happens. Okay, let's continue. He, of course, includes this card thing, which doesn't really serve any purpose except for telling you what the story is about in a simple summary, which isn't that great because, of course, it's not like a data profile card. He does include 4 interchangeable hands. As you can see, I have a fist hand and one of the open hands on him right there. So he includes 2 gripping hands. So if you want him to hold gripping accessories, there's that. And then, of course, the 2 other hands that I mentioned. He has 2 pairs of fist hands and also 2 pairs of, the grabbing hand, like he's going to grab you. So pretty much that is all his accessories. Like, there's nothing else that he has. And, of course, I guess the basic DC plaque, stand thing that they all include, the hockey plaque, whatever you want to call it. The circular disc. Yeah, I don't really count that as accessory because they all come with that anyway. So, yeah. As for the figure, I like the way that this figure was detailed in certain areas because they really put a lot of texture work into this figure. Because as of recent, like this wave alone, before this wave, a lot of the figures that were coming out like this year since the beginning, and even some of the ones later, were just starting to lack a lot of texture. Like certain figures would have it, certain figures would have nothing. It would just be like literal paint. Nothing would pop out at all. And when this wave got announced, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like, I didn't state this in the last review for the Superman, but like, this wave was a breath of fresh air because it was seeing new sculpts for the first time in a long time and seeing those texture details be applied onto figures again, giving that like nostalgic feeling of what this line was when it started. So I'm glad the budget went into that. So, as you can see, his legs are kind of like a reuse of the other one, but just like thinner. But the texture patterns from that original General Zod and this one, it works because it's the same character. And I really love that they brought that texture back. And then as for his leg armor, you can see how nicely painted the front is because it's literally like all faded with purple. There's faded purple and stuff. And of course, there's like the logo thing here that's popping out. It's not printed on, it's actually sculpted on. And certain areas like this could be painted, and even his fabric thing has like the texture dots on it. As you can see, his belt is somewhat painted with silver. There's just certain areas that are just like detailed. Even the arms, even though they're all like a plain color, they are detailed with like things on it to symbolize that he was wearing some sort of clothing armor thing, right? Now, for a figure like this, the front looks amazing, right? You got all this detail here. Some of it is painted, some of it is unpainted, some of it you can go back and do yourself, right? DIY. And you can paint it with metallics. And this is where the backside of the figure comes into the flaw of this figure. You have the nice looking front side, but when you turn the figure around, it is the most plain looking thing ever, right? The belt pattern doesn't go all the way to the back. All the silvers on the front are basically not present on the back. And you can make this argument where, okay, most people like to display their figures like this, right? In the front. But if you're someone like me who likes taking photos of my action figures, and if I ever get this guy into a pose, right? If, like, say you're doing a pose like this, where he's looking at Superman, and Superman's, like, in the front over there, for example. This plain plastic on the back just ruins the immersion, because you know that the fadedness of the front could also be present on the back to make it pop. So my recommendation is, if you have this figure, if you know how to use the metallic markers, do a little bit of some painting to the backside, to certain areas that you think deserves the metallic paint. And it will make the figure look even better, because leaving it like this is not that great. You know, it's kind of boring. Well, this is my opinion. If you like it the way it is, that's cool. For me, I definitely have to go back and do something. So just something that I wanted to point out in terms of, like, what I think is the flaw. But everything else aside, still really good. So if you wanted a General Zod that looks different, that's really, strange looking, because he's not your usual typical way of how you picture General Zod as a character design, excuse me, this figure is the one to pick up. So yeah. I think that's it for aesthetics. I guess, yeah, the face now. Actually, one more thing, the face. The face is not bad. I really like the whole, like, ghost sort of deal going on here, and the fact that it's all translucent plastic. And that is something that I do want to point out, is the fact that I don't know if this was intentional on their part, but the translucent plastic that they chose to use for this figure, it actually can somewhat glow in the dark. Like, not completely like a glow-in-the-dark figure, but, like, if you shine light on this figure, right? If you light up this area just with a flashlight, leave it there for, like, a good couple minutes, turn the lights off, it will glow. Kinda. Like, I only found this out recently because I had them on my shelf, and, when I was living in the dorm, I didn't have my action figures there. I had some of them there, right? They were mainly statues, not the action figures. But this guy was always on the shelf for so long that I found out recently that he could do that. I didn't know he can. So if you have this figure, or if you want this figure now because of the glow-in-the-dark aspect, which I don't know if is intentional on their part, this makes it even more fun to have now. So there's that. And I think that is it for aesthetics. That is finally it, because I don't think there's anything else to talk about in terms of that. As for articulation, this figure can do some okay articulation. So, excuse me. I just had lunch earlier, so I do apologize. His head can look up, slightly like that. He can look down. He can tilt side to side. He can look left to right. And he technically can turn his head around completely, because this is soft PVC. So if you want to do that, you can. But just understand that the beard is going to get caught in this area. But his head can do a 360 if you want to do that. I don't know why you would, but you can if you want. So there's that. His arm can, spread out like that. Only this side, because this side has more freedom. This side can't do it because the shoulder armor gets in the way. However, this arm can still at least, go all the way around like that if you want to. He does have the double joint, right? He does have rotation by the hands, the usual articulation, right? And of course, his torso can rotate really good. So I do like that. It can also go around like that. So really good movement there. if you want to get him into like an action pose. And his waist, unfortunately, on my copy is very tight. It's kind of frozen. I have yet to loosen it, so I can't show that, but it should work as usual. The quality issue with my figure comes at the feet area. So it has nothing to do with the joints. Well, actually it does. So these are really tight down here, the ball pegs. There's a swivel up there that can technically swivel the feet. So you can make the feet like move this way, facing forward. You can technically do that because there's supposed to be a swivel movement by the ball pegs, right? On top too. So you can rotate it. This one is like frozen lock. So I heated it up earlier. It still doesn't want to budge. So I might have to use hot water as the way to get that to move, I guess. But if hot water doesn't work, then that means that it's clearly something with the plastic and I do not want to break it. So, yeah. But there is movement up there. As for his, like, feet, right? They can, pivot side to side. And, of course, there's toe articulation. And then with his legs, they do have double joint, right? As usual. Double joint works, kind of, somewhat. And can he do the splits? Yes, he can. This figure, not only can he do the splits, he can also kick out really freaking good. And let me just bring this guy back again, okay? Because this is going to be a running joke with this entire Page Puncher series. But, I have to point it out again. Like, come on. What's going on here? It's like, that figure came out way, I think, after. If I remember correctly, that figure came out... No, not after. It came out before this one. But so many other figures can kick out like this sometimes, right? Because the PVC is soft. What the heck happened with him? I still can't. I still got to call it out. I still have to call it out because, it's something there. But yeah, you can do this. And on top of that, you can like kind of like use the double joint. And if you want to do some sort of like kick action pose like this with, I don't know, try to get into Kamen Rider kick pose. Yeah, you can kind of do that too if you want to. But I'm just saying you can get him into some really cool action poses if you know how to. Because he can not only do the splits, but he can kick his legs out really good. So, I mean, and his torso can crunch forward really well too, right? Like, that is a really good crunch. So you can get this guy into some, action poses. That is what makes a figure fun, where they can pose. All right, that is it for the articulation. In terms of, all that, I think everything is good, except for that shoulder armor. That's the only thing that hinders it. But everything else, I think, is fine. As for comparisons, of course, let's bring Steel in. Steel is still taller than him, even if you stand him up straight by like a few inches. So, yeah. Steel's still a tall guy. But again, it works scale-wise, I think, right? Or are they the same height? No, he's like a little bit taller. Okay. Superman, however, since we're going to, bring him in for comparisons, Superman is still tall. And you could make the excuse in this case, because this is from the storyline, that because Superman is wearing armor, that is exactly why he is taller. So you can make that argument and it will still, it'll still work, in my opinion. But if you put the Superman next to anyone else, it just feels so, I don't know. It just feels so weird. Like, he's not meant for your Justice League shelf. I mean, unless you really want an armored Superman like this to represent your Justice League shelf. It's like Superman wearing armor, and he has to be the tallest in the group. Yeah. But in terms of this comic, I think it's fine. It works. Because he is wearing he's wearing double layers of armor, as I would say. And, of course, if we want to compare him to maybe something, not DC related, but something random. Well, it is kind of random. But if you want to compare him to, height measure with the Tiger Guy from the Full Ray Planet series of figures, you can do that too. And of course, he's taller because he's a giant tiger with two blades. So, yeah, all in all, in the end of the day, is this a good figure? I think it is. I enjoy this figure. I like the way all of this stuff works. You can get them into some cool poses if you know how to pose them right. And yeah, I would say pick this up if you're a fan of General Zod or you just need another General Zod figure in your shelf. This is the one I think that you should get because I don't think there's any other General Zod figure Mcfarlane has made. No. Except for the one before. But this one's better than the one before in my opinion. So, yeah. All right, that wraps up today's review of the second figure in the Page Puncher wave for the Superman thing. And if you found this video informative, give it a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel to keep updated with me reviewing this entire wave and other figure reviews in the future, or my Force to Fight content, you can do so as well. You don't have to. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.